Thank you, Travis. Good evening and thanks for joining tonight's regional news. We begin in St. Lucia. A former U.S. Marine who fled to St. Lucia in 2014 while facing child pornography charges has been repatriated to face the courts. The suspect has been identified as Sebastian Marcus Day. According to reports, the 27-year-old traveled to the Caribbean island of St. Lucia just after the sheriff's office executed a search warrant at his home, leading to 25 counts of possession of child pornography. Law enforcement authorities in the U.S. said deputies spent the next few years working with the Department of Justice Office of International Affairs to have Day extradited back to the U.S. The request was denied in 2018, as at the time St. Lucia did not consider Day's conduct in Volusia County a crime. Later that year, St. Lucia modified its computer misuse laws to criminalize possession of child pornography with intent to distribute, clearing the way for Day to be returned to the U.S. Day was arrested by St. Lucian authorities in November 2019. The extradition was completed recently after Day had a petition to overturn it denied. United States Marshals arrived in St. Lucia this week to escort him back to the U.S. Let's turn our attention to Cuba. The U.S. government on Sunday announced that it is gratified to see independent journalist Roberto de Jesus Quinones reunited with his family after a year of undue suffering as a prisoner of conscience in Cuba. However, repeated our strong condemnation of his unjust imprisonment for the simple act of doing his job. On August 7, 2019, the Cuban regime convicted Quinones on dubious charges of resistance and disobedience and sentenced him to 1 year in labor camp. His detention and trial were marked by the flagrant disregard of legal norms, which is typical of the Cuban regime. Cuban authorities did not inform Quinones of the charges against him until minutes before the trial and did not permit him legal representation in the courtroom. The regime's prosecutors did not permit Quinones to present evidence of his injuries at the hands of the police who arrested him. In March, he was denied parole. The U.S. Secretary of State Michael Pompeo said it is disgraceful that the Cuban regime incarcerated a journalist whose only crime is working for a more transparent society. He added that is also unsurprising. The regime uses any excuse to silence its critics and to violate human rights, including the rights of freedom of expression and to fair trial guarantees. Pompeo called on the democratic partners across the globe to make respect for human rights a prerequisite for all dealings with Cuba. And now for our final story coming out of Colombia. Colombian security forces announced the arrest of 4 Venezuelan citizens last Thursday. Raider Alexander Russell Marquez, Ovenel Torres, and Uven Jose were captured in Bogota. The operation was jointly carried out by the Colombian Attorney General's Office, Police, Army, and Migration Services with the assistance of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Colombian President Ivan Duque held a press conference after the arrests, claiming that the 4 were criminals paid by the Venezuelan government to destabilize the country. According to the Venezuelan authorities, Russo and Torres are brothers who participated in the Operation Gideon failed paramilitary incursion. On May 3 and 4, 2 speedboats carrying armed men were intercepted by security forces. Search operations in the following days led to over 40 arrests. The brothers took part in the April 30, 2019 failed attempt before deserting to the Bolivarian National Guard. Russo, aka Pico, is accused of involvement in the August 2018 assassination attempt against Maduro. Well, that has brought us to the end of tonight's regional news. Thank you for watching, and back to you, Travis.